So I have a little bit of breaking news for everybody. I woke up this morning and I saw some news that's really, really terrifying, but it wouldn't be to a casual news observer. You need a little bit of backstory on this to really get why this is so horrendous. But look at this. So this is from Reuters Top News. They say, breaking, White House has planned to replace Secretary of State Rex Tillerson with CIA Director Pompeo within weeks. There used to be a few moderating influences on Donald Trump when it comes to foreign policy. Okay, not, in other respects, there's probably no moderating influences. But on foreign policy, it used to be Bannon, who was there, who's a disgusting racist and horrendous. But on foreign policy, his nationalism led him to the position of we need to stop doing these regime change wars and wasting all of our money overseas, so on and so forth. They got rid of Bannon. But then there's Tillerson and Mattis who remain, who are somewhat moderating in terms of foreign policy. Well, he's been not happy with either one of them in recent days because every time North Korea does a missile test, for example, he's ready to press the button and go to war. And all the neocons in the Deepstate are telling him, yeah, I don't know what you're waiting for. Let's go do it. Let's go to war. Let's go. Why is this even a question? Well, Tillerson and Mattis are the only reason why we haven't, because they've been whispering in Trump's ear, listen, Tillerson says, let's do diplomacy, I'm going to do diplomacy, and he's always been the guy who, after Trump says something crazy, like, we're going to rain down fire and fury on North Korea, he comes out and says, no, the president was speaking metaphorically, and we're attempting to be in talks, and we're going to try to fix this through China, and yada, yada, yada. That Trump is now shuffling around these top people in his administration, when he already said, by the way, they're done shuffling people around, because the administration looked like it was in crisis to everybody, because he kept firing people who were really, top administration people. So he's like, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore, because then it gives the media fodder where they can talk about how, disorganized and unserious we are. Well, now apparently that perception, he doesn't care about that, which means that there's a really serious reason why he doesn't want, these guys around anymore. And my guess is this has everything to do with foreign policy when it comes to North Korea and when it comes to Iran. So if you get rid of Tillerson and or Mattis, there's no mask off, like Future says. That's mask off. That's, yeah, we're done even having the veneer of diplomacy. And what should scare you even more is this. Anti-Iran hawk Tom Cotton would replace Pompeo at the CIA. Be prepared for 2002-2003 redux. So if Pompeo gets Secretary of State, Pompeo's a guy who said Edward Snowden should be executed for, showing how the government is spying on you unconstitutionally, for being a whistleblower that's a hero who shows what your government is doing with your money in your name and violating your rights. Pompeo says he should be executed. Pompeo never met a war he didn't like. Tom Cotton is even worse than Pompeo. Tom Cotton says the only problem with Guantanamo is that there aren't more people there. He's openly in favor of torture. He's repeatedly defended torture and said, I think we should continue to do it. You want to put a guy who is okay with torture, is vocal about it, wants to send more people to an extrajudicial prison that's unconstitutional and against international law. You want to put him as the head of the CIA, a covert agency whose track record is torture and toppling governments that we don't like. We're talking about an administration that would get, I think, even worse than Bush and the neocons if they were to go in this direction. That's not an exaggeration. And this is not me. Like, I often go after corporate Democrats for downplaying how bad George W. Bush really was, because now he's part of the resistance because he had 2 words against Trump. George Bush is a war criminal. He's terrible. His administration was one of the worst ever. But I'm telling you that if you go Tom Cotton as head of the CIA, Mike Pompeo as Secretary of State, the wheels are totally off. We're going 1,000 miles an hour into a brick wall. There will be some sort of conflict with North Korea. There will be some sort of conflict with Iran. And I don't think people get how disastrous those wars could be. Because, with Iraq, for example, it was horrendous. It was disastrous. And you had hundreds of thousands of people who died on the Iraqi side, civilians on the Iraqi side, and you broke the Middle East, and ISIS rose up out of the ruins and all that stuff. But when you talk about a war with Iran, it ain't the same thing as a war with Iraq. That's not the same thing. Iran is a much more modern society. You would be creating a crisis the likes of which we haven't seen since probably World War II if you attack Iran. If you attack North Korea, do you realize you're putting hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people, in South Korea in danger? But when you put these guys in these positions, these guys who are on the record as being hawkish among hawks, I mean, these guys honestly are more hawkish than Bill Kristol. You put these guys in these positions, and oh my goodness. There's nothing more depressing than thinking about what Trump's rhetoric was on the campaign trail half the time on foreign policy. When he spoke about, we need to rebuild our country here at home. Why are we wasting all this money overseas? Why are we in Afghanistan? He would speak against intervention and talk about how we need to rebuild our own country and stop wasting money. And he did a total 180. You can't do a bigger 180 than he's doing now. Every single moderating influence on foreign policy. And by the way, when I say moderating, I don't mean like you had people who were Rand Paul-esque in there. I'm just talking about people who are still hawkish, but are smart enough to know you can't just attack North Korea or Iran. You can't just do it. There needs to be. It's such a world destabilizing event. You can't be willy-nilly about it. Those are the moderating influences. The fact that he's moving to get these people gone is petrifying. Because he said yesterday when North Korea did their missile test, he made it seem like, we'll take care of it. Don't worry about that. As if like, yeah, it's time. It's time. Ugh. And just so everybody knows, because these things are always covered as if it's in a vacuum to U.S. media. You have North Korea doing a missile test, and they don't give you context or backstory. So they make it seem like here he is, crazy dictator from North Korea, Kim Jong-un. Look at what he's doing, man. Totally unprovoked. Well, no, what they don't tell you is they never cover our acts of aggression as if it's like breaking news, U.S. escalates with North Korea. They never do that because in the framework of corporate media in the U.S., whatever we do is defined as defensive, even if it's not. So we've done countless military exercises right on their border. Right on their border. Now, that's not like, can you imagine if Mexico or Cuba, flew fighter jets right on our border? We would think it was an act of aggression and they're going to launch an attack right now. We wouldn't even know if it was a fucking drill or if they're really about to attack. That's what North Korea gets. And I mean, look, you actually do have something that's analogous. Look at what happened during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Russia, we had weapons pointing at Russia. So Russia, Soviet Union at the time, put weapons in Cuba and pointed them at us. And that was the biggest crisis that we literally almost had a thermonuclear war over it. We do that every week with North Korea, where we fly fighter jets on their border. And they don't know, are they about to attack any second, or are they just trying to intimidate us? So we do that all the time. Not a peep from the U.S. media about U.S. aggression escalates in North Korea. Never. They never frame it in that way. Ever. Ever. By the way, we're the country that 432% increase in drone strikes. The overwhelming majority of people we kill in drone strikes are civilians. We've escalated in Iraq. We've escalated in Syria. We've escalated in Afghanistan. Never covered as us being aggressors, even though it is textbook aggression. What? Assad is about to attack us? He's not about to attack us, so why the fuck are we bombing in his country? You know? Who's on the verge of attacking us? Is there an imminent attack coming from Somalia where we've gotten rid of the rules of engagement, loosen those, and we're drone striking all the time? There's no imminent threat of attack. So we can fight in 7 different countries, but you're not allowed to call it aggression. You can't call that aggression. It's all defensive by definition. This is what happens when people internalize the framework of empire. That's what this is. And so when we're aggressive in North Korea and then they respond, we go, oh, that's not them responding. That's them being aggressive is what that is. I mean, it's honestly stupid. It is just if an alien force was looking down on that, they go, oh, obviously they're the aggressor, they're not. Now, by the way, that's not excusing North Korea, how they treat their own people. How they treat their own people is fucking, forget about it. It's a horror show. There's no denying that. Nobody is denying that. But they're one of the poorest countries on earth. They don't have the ability to keep the fucking lights on at night, and we're afraid of an offensive attack against Nebraska? Get the fuck out of here. The second that the United States attacked Gaddafi, after Gaddafi had given up his weapons, that sealed the fate. North Korea is not going to be stupid enough to hand over nuclear weapons, hand over any weapons for that matter, because we just showed that we're liars. Gaddafi handed it over saying, look, I see what y'all do with Saddam. I don't want to be the next Saddam. I don't want you toppling me. So here's my weapons. Take them. So Gaddafi gives up his weapons, and then we go topple him anyway. So we're doing the same thing with Kim Jong-un. Hey, why don't you sit down at the table and we'll, all we want to do is we just want to take away your weapons, and then don't worry, we'll leave you alone after you give us your weapons. They're not that stupid. And the media refuses to give you that context. They refuse to give you the backstory and the proper perspective on it, because they're propagandists. So here we are. Man, this is bad. The hawkish, the most hawkish hawks in the history of hawkishness are about to take key, vital roles. And this could lead to a global crisis, the likes of which I've certainly never seen in my lifetime.